Om Vishnupada Panamahamsa Parinachakcharya Ashtadada Satta Shri Shrima His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Acharya His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupada Panamahamsa Parinachakcharya Ashtadada Satta Shri Shrima His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Sakha Ho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasade Gola Bhakta Vinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Go Gopinam Shama Kun Radha Kun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Shri Jagnapuri Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Chamunamai Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vinda Ki Jai. Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai. Transcendental Prasadam Distribution Ki Jai. Hare Rama Sankirtan Ki Jai. ISKCON Yuttagadam Ki Jai. Nitai Gauda Pramanandi Harib Haribo. All glories to the Sambodhi Bodhis. Hare Krishna. All glories to the Sambodhi Bodhis. Hare Krishna. All glories to the Sambodhi Bodhis. Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskrityam Naranchaiva Narottamam Devin Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Uditayet Nasta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavatam Sevaya Bhagavati Utamashloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. So reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd Canto, Chapter 8, text number 25. Acha pramanam hi bhavam parameshti yatatma buhu appare chanuttishtati puvesham puva jahi kritam acha pramanam hi bhavam parameshti yatatma bu apere chanuttishtani puvesham puva jakritam acha pramana hi bhavam parameshti yatatmatpu apere chanuttishtani puvesham puva jakritam acha pramana hi bhavam parameshti yatatpu apere chanuttishtani puvesham puva jakritam atra bhavahi bravam parameshti yatatmabu parameshti yatatmabu apere chanuttishtani puvesham puva jakritam atra pramanam vibhavam parameshti yatatmabu apare chanuttishtani Veshampuvan Chakritam. Vaishnavis, atra in this matter, pramanam, evidential facts. He certainly, bhavam, yourself, parameshti, Brahma, the creator of the universe. Yata, as, Atmabhu, born directly from the Lord. Apare, others, cha, oni, anutishtanti, just to follow. Puvesham, as a matter of customs. Puvajai, knowledge suggested by a previous philosopher. Kritam, having been done. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation: O great sage, you are as good as Brahma, the original living being. Others follow custom only as followed by the previous philosophical speculator. This is Sukadeva Goswami. Oh, sorry, it's Parishar Maharaj. Sorry, Parishar Maharaj continue. Yeah, he is actually continue ask questions to Sukadeva Goswami. Yeah. Purport: it may be argued that Sukadeva Goswami is not the only authority of perfect knowledge in the transcendence, because there are many other sages and their followers. Contemporary to Vyasadeva, or even prior to him, there were many other great sages, such as Gautama, Kanada, Jamini, Kapila, and Ashtavakra. And all of them have presented a philosophical path by themselves. Patanjali is also one of them. And all these 6 great rishis have their own way of thinking, exactly like the modern philosophers and mental speculators. The difference between the 6 philosophical paths put forward by the renowned sages above mentioned and that of Sukadeva Goswami as presented in the Srimad Bhagavatam is that all the 6 sages mentioned above speak the facts according to their own thinking. But Sukadeva Goswami presents the knowledge which comes down directly from Brahmaji, who is known as Atmabhu, or born of and educated by the Almighty Personality of Godhead. Vedic transcendental knowledge descends directly from the personality of Godhead. By His mercy, Brahma, the first living being in the universe, was enlightened. And from Brahmaji, Narada was enlightened. And from Narada, Vyasa was enlightened. Sukadeva Goswami received such transcendental knowledge directly from his father, Vyasadeva. Thus, the knowledge being received from the chain of disciplic succession is perfect. One cannot be a spiritual master in perfection unless and until one has received the same by disciplic succession. That is the secret of receiving transcendental knowledge. The 6 great sages mentioned above may be great thinkers, but the knowledge by mental speculation is not perfect. However perfect an empirical philosopher may be in presenting a philosophical thesis, such knowledge is never perfect because it is produced by an imperfect mind. Such great sages also have their disciplic successions, but they have not authorized because such knowledge does not come directly from the independent Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan. No one can be independent except Narayan. Therefore, no one's knowledge can be perfect, for everyone's knowledge is dependent on the flickering mind. Mind is material, and thus knowledge presented by material speculators is never transcendental and can never become perfect. Mundane philosophers, being imperfect in themselves, disagree with other philosophers because a mundane philosopher is not a philosopher at all unless he presents his own theory. Intelligent persons like Maharaj Parikshit do not recognize such mental speculators, however great they may be, but hear from the authorities like Sukadeva Goswami, who is none different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead by the Parampara system, as is specially stressed in the Bhagavad Gita. Om Jnana Timinandasya Jnananjanang Sharakaya Chakshu Uminitan Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Pishtan Stapidan Yena Buddhare Swayam Rupan Kadamahyan Pradati Swam Padantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Rupam Padakamanam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sakrachatam Sahagana Rakunata Vitam Tam Sajivam Satvaitam Savatutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Narita Shri Vishakam Vitamsya. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinna Bandhu Chagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanda Radha Kanda Namastude. Tapta Kamchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavan Nishwari Vishabhanu Sudadevi Pranamami Haripriye. Vanchakaupatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishvanebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasade Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Acha pranamanam hi bhavam parameshti yatatma bhu apare chanutishtanti puvesham puva jaikritam. Translation again. O great sage, you are as good as Brahma, the original living being. Others follow custom only, as followed by the previous philosophical speculator. So, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada, he was just stressing the following the parampara system to require spiritual knowledge. Prabhupada, he said that Sukadeva Goswami received such transcendental knowledge directly from his father Vyasadeva. Thus, the knowledge being received from the chain of disciplic succession is perfect. One cannot be a spiritual master in perfection unless and until one has received the same by disciplic succession. That is the secret of receiving transcendental knowledge. So it reminds me a verse from the Bhagavad Gita. It's from chapter 4, text number 34. Tat vidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnani nastatva dashna. Lord Krishna here is instructing Arjuna by saying, just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized soul can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. So Srila Prabhupada, he wrote a beautiful purport stressing that we should definitely follow the parampara system or disciplic succession in order to acquire spiritual knowledge. Prabhupada, he said in the purport that the path of spiritual realization is undoubtedly difficult. Yeah. The Lord therefore advises us to approach a bona fide spiritual master in the line of disciplic succession from the Lord himself. So this disciplic succession has to come to Lord Krishna himself, like our sampradaya. You see, we are called Brahma sampradaya because our disciplic succession is coming from Lord Brahma. Actually, the first spiritual master is Krishna himself. So Krishna instructs this knowledge to Lord Brahma, and Lord Brahma instructs the knowledge to his son, Narada Muni. And then Narada Muni instructs the knowledge to Vyasadeva. So like this, until Srila Prabhupada. Yeah. So here, in the Bhagavad Gita, it is written that Srila Prabhupada is the 32nd generation of the spiritual master presenting this spiritual knowledge. Yeah. So, 1 second. I lost it. Yeah. So one should learn the spiritual knowledge from a perfect disciplic succession. And the original spiritual master should be Lord Krishna himself. Yeah. And then Prabhupada, he continued saying that no one can be a bona fide spiritual master without following this principle of disciplic succession. Yeah. The Lord is the original spiritual master, and a person in the disciplic succession can convey the message of the Lord as it is to his disciple. Yeah. So that means, the disciple shouldn't change anything. Whatever the spiritual master is teaching, he shouldn't change anything. Just like a postman, he shouldn't change anything in the letter. Yeah, he just delivered the letter, to the person, as it is, like that. He shouldn't add any words or delete anything. No, he should just originally, as it is, deliver that letter, like that. So it's very important, we should not change anything in the Shastra. Yeah. And then Prabhu, he was saying, no one can be spiritually realized by manufacturing his own process, as is the fashion of the foolish pretender. The Bhagavatam 6.3.19 says, Dhammam tu saksha bhagava panitam. The path of religion is directly enunciated by the Lord. Therefore, mental speculation and dry arguments cannot help lead one to the right path. Yeah. That's why Srila Prabhupada, he was saying in the purport that he was mentioning 6 great philosophers. Prabhupada, he was commenting that mental speculator or dry arguments cannot help, lead one to the right path, Yeah. Nor by independent study of books of knowledge, can one progress in spiritual life. Just like, if you want to become a doctor, you cannot just buy, a few copies of books from the bookstore and study, and then you become a doctor. No. You should study in the university under the guidance of an expert doctor master. And you practice. Then, you will become, a good doctor. And then Prabhupada, he continues saying that one has to approach a bona fide spiritual master to receive the knowledge. Such a spiritual master should be accepted in full surrender. And one should serve the spiritual master like a menial servant, without false prestige. Satisfaction of the self-realized spiritual master is the secret of advancement in spiritual life. Yeah, this is very important. We have to please the spiritual master. Actually, that's the Prabhupada said that's the secret of spiritual advancement. If a disciple is thinking that he is better than the master, then he is doomed in the spiritual life. Yeah. I remember in the early days, sometimes some devotees in China, he would ask many foolish questions. And sometimes my Guru Maharaj, Tamal Krishna, he would say, you are so intelligent. You can even ask some questions that your spiritual master cannot, even your spiritual master cannot answer. My Guru Maharaj was saying like that, yeah. So actually, the disciple should never ask, foolish questions like that, Should not challenge the spiritual master. If you are not in good, humble, submissive mood, then, the spiritual master cannot, give you guidance, give you the knowledge. Then your spiritual life is finished. Yeah. So it's very important that the disciple should serve the spiritual master like a menial servant and submissively humbly ask questions like that, not in a challenging way. Yeah. That's why Prabhupada, he was saying, satisfaction of the self-realized spiritual master is the secret of advancement in spiritual life. So inquiries and submission constitute the proper combination for spiritual understanding. Unless there is submission and service, inquiries from the learned spiritual master will not be effective. Yeah. One must be able to pass the test of the spiritual master. And when he sees the genuine desire of the disciple, he automatically blesses the disciple with genuine spiritual understanding. So sometimes the spiritual master will test us, our sincerity. Yeah, it reminds me yesterday I was sharing with Rabindranath Prabhu. And Rabindranath Prabhu, he was telling me, if the spiritual master forget to tell you to take prasadam, then the disciple should fast for the whole day. So that's the test of the spiritual master. Yeah. So that's why, Prabhu, he was saying here that one must, be able to pass the test of the spiritual master. And when he sees the genuine desire of the disciple, he automatically blesses the disciple with genuine spiritual understanding. So in this verse, both blind following and absurd inquiries are condemned. Not only should one hear submissively from the spiritual master, but one must also get a clear understanding from him in submission and service and inquiries. A bona fide spiritual master, by nature, very kind toward the disciple. Actually, I was, thinking Srila Prabhupada, he was such a great spiritual master. And he's so compassionate. I mean, Prabhupada, he can comfortably stay in India and pass the rest of his life in Krishna consciousness like that. But Srila Prabhupada, as a bona fide spiritual master, he was so kind towards all the living beings. Yeah, instead, he took so many difficulties and troubles by coming to the Western world to give this transcendental knowledge to us. Because a true Vaishnava, he cannot tolerate to see the sufferings of the conditioned souls. Because a true Vaishnava, he knows what is the reason of the sufferings of the conditioned soul. Yeah, he knows that. So therefore, Srila Prabhupada, he cannot tolerate to see the suffering conditions of the conditioned souls. That's why, he came here and gave us this transcendental knowledge. Yeah. Therefore, when the student is submissive and is always ready to render service, the reciprocation of knowledge and inquiries become perfect. Yeah. That's why Srila Prabhupada, he was saying in today's verse, Prabhupada, he was glorifying Sukadeva Goswami, because Sukadeva Goswami, he received this transcendental knowledge directly from his father Vyasadeva, who is the compiler of all the Vedas. Yeah, who is a bona fide spiritual master in this disciplic succession. Yeah. So I'll just stop here. Are there any questions or comments? Yeah. Yes. Srimad Prabhu. Microphone, please.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for a nice class. I'm thinking that there's a difference in presentation of philosophy in Krishna consciousness versus the material world. Material world, everybody tries to come up with their own unique idea, or I think, in my opinion, and they're always changing their ideas every 10 years, say this is the authority, and then after 10 years, then it was like that other person was completely off, and now this is the new theory, the flavor of the month. And in Krishna consciousness, the same tune, you get credit for being a bona fide representative by simply presenting the message as it is and not creating your own unique idea.
Right.
So that seems to be a big difference in the philosophical presentations.
Right. Yeah, that's why probably he was stressing the Prabhupada that one should not change anything, of the words of the spiritual master. He should present exactly like, whatever the spiritual master was saying. Yeah, whereas in the material world, if you want to be recognized as a philosopher, then you have to present something different from the others. Otherwise, you're nobody. Yeah. Thank you so much for the wonderful points. Yes, Naikatma Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu. There's a beautiful verse given in the first canto, Narada Muni instructs Vyasadeva. It's very closely associated with what Nila Madhava Mahotsav just mentioned. And that verse is that a knowledge of self-realization, even though free from all material affinity, does not look well if devoid of a conception of the infallible God. So no matter how intelligent someone may be, if it's devoid of a conception of the infallible Lord, it doesn't look well. The second part of it is, what then is the use of fruitive activities, which are naturally painful from the very beginning and transient by nature, if they are not utilized for the devotional service of the Lord? So what is the use of so much hard work if it's not utilized for the devotional service of the Lord?
Right, right. Thank you, Prabhu, for the wonderful point. Yes, Sachinanoy Prabhu. Sachinanoy Prabhu. Such Prabhu, yeah. Yeah,
thank you. In the comment that Mahotsava was doing, Prabhu.
What's that?
The comment that he made about authority. So I was just also, it's a comment that I have, realizing that it's interesting to see that spiritual, teachings or followers, we accept the great Mahajanas, but still, sometimes, we work under the authority, let's say, the government, and they might not necessarily be in that, how do you say, it's spiritually that in tune with us, that we follow whatever they say. We sin nowadays, especially in this particular situation. So that's why it's important that at one point maybe those who possess that authority in the material world can be really, how do you say, spiritually elevated, so that don't create confusion in the followers, because the followers nowadays, some different spiritual groups, they fight among each other because they divide themselves. They create a lot of division. They don't know where to go, who to follow. And this is an authority, but also we have authority, but you're independent, and like all this. Right, right.
Therefore, it is always better to have a king like Maharaj Yudhishthira. Then, everything will be perfect, That's why Shravara, he was saying, we should have our Krishna party in the government. Why not the Democrat or the other, we should have our Krishna party.
That doesn't mean that we are not going to follow. I mean, we even in Lord Chaitanya's time, he followed whatever was at the particular time. He could just get Haridas Thakur and go inside the temple of Sanatana and Rupan. So we still follow, but I'm saying, just to make clear the point, that how difficult it becomes when it comes to authority.
Yeah.
You have the outside, the government, and then you have our own following, and then the devotees or the religionists of other groups, they create friction. And I've seen them fighting sometimes, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
You're right. That's why we need Krishna conscious government. Then everything will be perfect. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, we will stop here. Thank you so much for coming. Gantraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaura Bhaktavinda ki jai. Ribo, ribo.